So here we are again, backed by persistently on popular demand, and tonight, and yes, it is night, but the days are getting longer and lighter, so the darkness takes longer to descend, at least in my room, if not in my soul. Tonight, we're going to continue our two-parter into the second song on the last Nightwish album, Noise, which is clearly counterpoint to music. It is the companion piece to music. So we're going to take a look at some of, I think, the themes of that song and the music video of that song, which I found very charming indeed. Very some interesting things in this video. So this is Noise by NightWish. Amazing image. I mean, that's stunning. So I don't think the themes of this song are particularly hidden at all. I think it's very, to use that term again, very on the nose. It's a song about it's a song about this. It's a song about these devices, these machines, these tools that we use, where all the information in the world is available to us, and we surround ourselves by echo. It's a very, very familiar theme. It's a very, very relatable theme. And as much as I am an absolute addict to my devices, I'm surrounded by them. I use them all the time. But I'm also aware of how they can be corrupting and how they can distort reality. I don't think there's an awful lot about this lyric that is particularly difficult to interpret. I think there's some interesting things in it. I did a little bit of research because there's some things in this lyric that caught my eye. What also caught my eye is this amazing music video, and maybe answers on a postcard. Maybe someone can explain to me who's paying for this stuff, because in a world where it's increasingly hard to get the record companies to spend money because it's increasingly hard for them to make money, I'm intrigued to know how NightWish managed to make such striking and strikingly expensive work. I know they're relatively big, and I'm sure they make somebody a lot of money, but in the same way that Rush and to an extent Marillion and probably a lot of the sort of bands that we like, those bands are not bands where they're going to sell very many more albums if they make a music video. If you've got some new young pop artist to make a music video, get that music video on the air, get it seen in the right places. You can sell music. Back in the heady days of Top of the Pops, having a music, or the MTV, when MTV was still a music channel, you get a music video on the air, it sells volume. But I wonder how many more or less albums Nightwish would have sold if they hadn't made this video. But it feels like making this video was part of the art of the album, part of the artistic expression of the album. And I'm fascinated by how expensive, how technically interesting, how striking they are as images. But as much as anything, just how expensive it would have been to make this, even when you start to see the sort of repeated use of footage and motif and tool. This was not a cheap music video to make. Now, either somebody was making it for passion, which would be amazing, or somebody was making it for profit, and I'd love to know what the profit motive was for whoever paid for the video. In terms of the lyrics, they are really they couldn't be clearer, you know. Zoom in for flack and misery, bleeding pixels, shoot yourself, the selfie generation, pose for the dead. I mean, that just immediately brings me to mind of that, let me not use a too rude a word, that gentleman who took pictures of the dead in a forest in Japan, near life, all of these things. I think we can all entirely see where Tuomas is at with that. I will say this lyric reminded me of a Marillion lyric that I pulled up because I thought it was so of a piece with this one. And Stephen Hogarth said in on Fear, their last album, and as I stand here wondering why a man beheaded on a smartphone falls into my pocket from the sky. Modern life, everything is everywhere. Know what I mean? Handy and obscene. Now, to me, that is of a piece with this lyric. It's of a piece with digital ghouls telling you to shut up and dance, which there's an argument that says this music video is guilty of that message, if nothing else. All of this is completely, I'm sure I just popped the mic, all of this is completely knowable. What interests me is this last line, the line we're about to hear, colour a yarn and the crowds will gather. Now, colour a yarn could easily be a piece of cloth. A piece of cloth is made up of yarn. That yarn is coloured and we get beautiful things. But yarn is also another word for song, story. And if you colour a yarn, you're telling a story. And if you tell a story, maybe Tuomas is offering colour a yarn and the crowds will gather as an alternative to all of this distance technology, the family picture with everybody on their phones, the striking images of the baby being immersed and placed within this digital landscape from birth, as we'll later discover, to death. I'm not entirely sure, but I have a feeling that having set up this very clear antipathy for the worst elements of technology, he offers us an alternative. Musically, it's almost like this comes from the Little Book of NightWish for me. It's a very familiar motif. It's a very familiar feel and sound. It almost is starting, even in my head, to become the sort of NightWish sound. And I know they have variety, and I know that there's lots of other elements within their music. But this very much feels like a big, bold NightWish song. And interestingly, if you look on Spotify, it has, I think, 10 million more views, 10 million more impressions than any other song on this album. I suspect because it's the most familiar. It's the most NightWishy of the NightWish songs on this album. Now you're a star, fame, avatar, feeding the beast in your now we go there. You have become tool of a tool, digital fool, setting you to shut off their dance. That's an incredible image. That's really beautiful. And not cheap. Brilliant. Interesting. Just occurred to me. Colour yarn and the crowds will gather. That's canvas. The Mona Lisa is painted on canvas, and that is also a colourful yarn. And what they've shown us here is the crowds gathered for a significantly, I suspect, oversized Mona Lisa. Because I'm told, I've never seen it in the flesh, but I'm told it's surprisingly small. But what an interesting image. These people gathered, sitting, looking at their devices while in front of them is one of the defining pieces of art of the human experience. Colour a yarn and the crowds will gather. Somebody somewhere did a clever, a very clever with that. Oh, it's NightWish. great to see him in that image, by the way. He looks like the pan. Interesting little side note. Obviously, the mirror is black, probably a little reference to Charlie Brooker, Black Mirror, but also this idea, all of them, every single one is a black mirror. And every single one not only reflects me when I look into the black, but in that ecosystem, that echo chamber that is, only watching NightWish reaction videos, you will endlessly see yourself reflected back. See also Rush reaction videos. See also every aspect of your personal little echo chamber, no matter how liberal, progressive, open-minded, worldly wise you think you are. You exist in an echo chamber, in a fun house of mirrors, black mirrors reflecting you back at yourself, because we're a storytelling ape, but we're endlessly fascinated with our own reflection. A little bit of philosophy. I'll stop it there, if only because that image is gorgeous. That image is Tuomas and his heart and his ongoing exploration of nature, as is this lyric. The earth has a real voice. Go out and get in. I will follow. Go out and get in. But also, please love me. Why am I doing this? Is it because I want you to love me? Because I love the sound of my own voice? Is it performative? How performative? Steve Hogarth talks a lot about that, and we'll get into that when I do this Strange Engine particularly, I suspect. This verse seems to deal very much with that absolute desire we all have for human connection. And the promise of this technology was that we would be able to connect in unexpected, new, and improbably brilliant ways. And in some ways we did. I've met people on this channel. There will be people, a few, you know who you are, Mick, Paul, Zolly, Rion. There'll be people in the comments section below who I've met because of these connections, because of this maze in which we all exist. And I think some of those feelings are real and human. But I do increasingly find myself wondering if preaching to the choir is enough to satisfy that desire to test for echo. Astonishing image. The growing child. So we start to see the repeated images. We start to see, thinking as a filmmaker, we start to see the limitations of what they had to work with, of how they took the money that they spent and they tried to use it and expand it as wisely as possible. They did some really nice comping here. It's probably not the best you'll ever see. It's not Matrix good, but it's pretty good, pretty expensive, very, very time consuming, and very, very striking. I do like, actually, I noticed on the floor with the guys with the Mona Lisa, the use of the hexagons on all the surfaces, the physical matrix that we're seeing. I like the mirrors. I like so much about the production of this video. And it is inarguably better than any single video I suspect ever made for Rush. Um, any single video I suspect, with the possible exception of one, ever made for Marillion. It's an astonishing piece of work, and honestly, if you know at all how they managed to get somebody to spend the money to make this piece of art, I'd love to know. Professional jealousy, I'd love to know. That's astonishing. Look at that. What an image. I love that image. Beautiful. Swelling, different, orchestral. Amazing. I've just noticed the US Capitol building behind him in rotting away. That's great. And I really do like, I don't always completely connect with the that sort of very metal sound, but I really like the use of metal here. Those big chords. Come on. Forget about golden toilets. Come on. Look at that. What an image. What a beautiful piece of styling. What an image that is. The little girl in the cage of her mother's dress. That is art. That is art. That is astonishing. I don't know who created this stuff, but what is it? Namaste. I bow to you. Great drums. An amazing sequence. And this is the other piece of lyric. This section is the other piece of lyric that really, really grabbed me. I was so captured in the video there, I forgot that I was talking about lyrics. But feast your eyes on the black mirror, feed the beast, join the gathering, tell a tale, feast of fears is drawing near. And then this, beyond the human horizon, something terrifying sleeps. That immediately jumped out to me and reminded me of one of my favorite poems. And I'm not a poetry guy. Somebody early on in my NightWish journey suggested I should stick to poetry because I wasn't performing enough to show him how I liked the music, which still rankles, but obviously. But I'm not a poetry guy. There's very few poems that I have in my head. There's only one that I know off by heart. And for the two people who stay until the very end, I might even recite it for you because it's an astonishing poem. But this lyric reminded me of a poem that I pulled up. It's called The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats, and I'm sure you've all heard bits of it. It's been quoted in movies. It's a relatively familiar poem. It starts with the verse, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. All of which feels like it could be illustrated by this video. But the bit that has always really stirred my soul and that this lyric reminded me of is at the end of the poem. And it says, the second coming, hardly are those words out, when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Beyond the human horizon, something terrifying sleeps. Again, we've got a nearly 5-minute video, and we've probably got enough for about 3.5 minutes of unique images. But I really do like how the director and the editor have used those images to emphasize and use the repetition actually to create its own narrative. Tuomas, amazing. This took my breath away when I saw it for the first time. This is a breathtaking moment. A piece of visual storytelling to carry us into the rest of the album, and a breathtaking moment. It's right there. It's on the nose. It says Sto Pardew. It says directed it. There were some credits there. Look at that. What a lot of people. What a lot of talented people. Yeah, I'm astonished by the video. I love the imagery of it. The photography is good. The production design is astonishing. The storytelling is strong. And Tuomas nails it. I think he nails that sense of some uncertainty and angst that we all feel about this, even while we can't get away from them, even while we produce content for them. I very much think musically this is of a piece with the NightWish motif. It's a sort of benchmark track on the album. I think there's some very, very interesting things on this album. The symphonic piece that had a fan video made of it is absolutely astonishing. The name has gone from my head. I have it saved up here. Let's see if we can remember it. There it is. We go down to here. Nope, we go to that one. I can't find it. That's ridiculous. All the works of nature which adorn the world. There's a fan-made video of that is astonishing. I urge you to watch it, if only because whoever made it put a lot of time and energy into making it, and it's worth acknowledging. I like this lyric. I like the themes of it. It's quite challenging, and it does feel like some rough beasts hour has come at last, and it is, as we speak, slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. It does feel like we might be seeing the edge of the human horizon as we distort our horizons with this stuff. Not sure what we can do about it. Maybe just be nicer to each other, kinder, gentler. Not watch the beheading that falls into our pockets from the sky. Reject it. So that's it. That's NightWish Noise. And as promised, because I think it would be fun, here is the only poem I know by heart. Not lyric, that's a different thing. The only actual poem I know by heart. This be the verse, Philip Larkin. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the fears they had. They fill you with the flaws they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by folks in old-time hats and coats who half the time were sloppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. So get out early if you can, and don't have any kids yourself. It probably tells you a lot about me that that's the only poem I know. Thanks for watching. I'm happy that you did. Keep the faith.